Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you are very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat, and I've just got off at West Ferry, having ridden my favourite mode of transport. I've talked about this before. I do love the DLR, and for those of you who were in my History News Live the other day, you will know that I was very kindly invited, after asking if I could come, to the Museum of London Docklands for their launch of their new exhibition. So we are going to walk over from West Ferry to that museum and see what we see. They are doing a tour, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to speak to some individuals who were involved in making this really exciting new exhibition. So do come with me. And so here we are. The museum is right ahead of us there. Let's head on inside and see what we can find. This is it, the signage for the exhibition, Secrets of the Thames. And the entrance, which is just here, is directly opposite the Mudlarks Gallery, I think fairly fittingly, considering what this exhibition is about. The Mudlarks Gallery is full of amazing things for kids to enjoy. It's got a soft play, it's got lots of experimental exhibits and things. Pre-booking is required. We took Gabriel there a year or so ago, and he had a brilliant time. Now though, without further ado, let's head on into this exhibition. Look at this, isn't it fabulous? Let's see who we can find to speak to. Would you mind telling everybody who you are and what you do here at the museum?
Yes, my name's Tom Ardill. I'm a curator of paintings, prints and drawings, so not archaeology, but we have a lot of artworks in the exhibition as well, so I've been working with the artists on this exhibition.
Oh, incredible. And so could you tell people what a mudlark is and how you might become one, what you need to have to be doing this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, today a mudlark is really an amateur archaeologist, and they specialise in finding things on the foreshore of the Thames. So the Thames is this sort of incredible archaeological site. Rather than digging it up, the tides come along and move things about and reveal things every day. So the mudlarks are really hobbyists, and they go into the foreshore and look for historical artefacts. But originally a mudlark was really a scavenger, and they weren't looking for historical artefacts, they were looking for anything useful that they could use or sell. Quite often bits of coal that had fallen off a barge, things that had come off boats, an old anchor, a bit of metal, something like that, rope that could be sold on. But it was only really as people started discovering alongside these useful objects, historical artefacts, and people started realizing, oh, they could ask a mudlark to sell them something, that their kind of hobby grew as a form of archaeology. But today mudlarks need a license, a little bit different from the past, just to make sure that that all mudlarks are kind of treating the Thames carefully, respectfully.
Yep.
Not digging. They tend to just search eyes only, or just lightly scraping back the mud, but not digging big holes, because they can cause sort of damage to the foreshore. So today you get a licence with the Port of London Authority, and part of being mudlark today is very much sharing what you find. So they come into the museum and log their finds with the finds liaison officer.
Yes.
Who's based in the museum. You can learn about him in the show, and he'll log it and put it onto the portable antiquities scheme, which is a database of all the sort of things that are found by metal detectorists and mudlarks and amateurs around the country.
Yes, so we do a lot on this channel. I do a lot of history news, and so we talk about the finds that have been made and that they have been handed over, checked over by the coroner. You have to determine if they're treasures, and that's one of the reasons why being licensed is so important, because you don't want people ruining the foreshore, but also potentially making off with finds that tell us about our history. So that's a little bit about how these things have ended up here at the London Museum, and they are assessed here and they go as part of the collection. And that's happened over the last...
really for as long as the museum has been around. We were set up in the 70s, but some of the objects in the exhibition come from our predecessor museum, which was the Guildhall Museum, and they used to collect sort of antiquities that were found in London. So the museum's always had this relationship with mudlarks, and it's really their expertise that has brought so much knowledge to the museum, as well as all these objects.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's leads on to the next question. What kinds of things have mudlarking finds taught us about the history of this city, the river, maybe even the world?
Well, this exhibition is kind of, this room of the exhibition, which is called Stories from the Thames, kind of really shows that it's every aspect of life. London was built around the river. It's always been essential to life in London in all its different aspects. So you have things like a lot of pottery that's found on the foreshore, because pot houses were often based along the Thames, because you had that transport route. And also the Thames was the foreshore was a handy place to throw out anything that got broken and things like that. So really every aspect. There's eating and drinking. There's and obviously things to do with travellers and trade as well. So behind us here we've got objects to do with kind of shipping, a large tankard from a ship,
yes,
a compass, and a
particularly nice compass.
Yeah, this is a beautiful object.
I've got a close-up of this that I will be showing on screen.
Yeah.
Because I was told this was actually found in 2 separate parts by different mudlarks.
That's right, yeah.
And because it's all being shared here, which is so important, they get put together.
Yeah,
Fabulous.
and that's the amazing thing about mudlarking that this exhibition really shows, is that it's a kind of collaboration across many different people and across many different years. And we've got a few examples of things like that have been found years apart, and then you can only put the story together when those objects are found. And you never would have known that the 2 parts were connected until they're recorded, and you can do the measurements and you can bring them together.
Yes, it's so important. So this is obviously a pretty stellar find. You work in portraiture and art.
Yeah.
This is a really tough question. In this exhibition, what is your favourite piece? And I'll maybe if you want, you can have 3 favourite pieces. I'll be kind.
Yeah.
What's your favourite pieces?
Of artwork?
Or anything in the exhibition?
I think it changes every time I come into this exhibition.
I understand why.
Pick a different thing. Let me think. One of my favourite pieces, which kind of links 2 pieces together, so it's a bit of a tricksy answer, is a little rosary bead. So it's a carved bone item. It was a bead on a rosary, which would be used for saying prayers, Catholic prayers.
Yes.
And it's 2-sided. One side is a portrait of a woman, and the other side is a skull. So it's a memento mori. It's a reminder of life and death. And I think what I like about this, apart from that it's beautifully carved, it's medieval, it's sort of incredible it survived, is the fact that it was found by a mudlark, and it was one of those finds that was so meaningful for her, and just came about at a point in her life where she was sort of thinking about these things, and it's sort of almost as if that object found her rather than her finding it. And that's something that is expressed in an artwork we have in the exhibition as well, which is a sculpture of Caroline, who found the beads, by the artist Billie Bond.
Just over
here.
I will take a close-up picture of both this and also the bead, and I will be showing them on screen as we are talking, because these sculptures are also fabulous.
They're wonderful,
yes.
And you can see the sculpture and the bead in the exhibition, so it's a great opportunity to kind of bring those stories together.
Yeah, and that's something that we talk about on our channel quite a lot, is that history and the objects themselves, obviously they have a history and a story that's layered onto them before we find them. And then in the act of finding them, and in the narratives we put on them, and in the meanings we ascribe to them, that kind of history and those layers, that narrative's always being added to.
Yeah, I mean, every object here has been owned, used, made, lost, or thrown away.
Yes.
And then found again. So you've already got that kind of, I mean, in the museum world, we call it provenance, it's kind of fancy word, but it's losing and finding, it's owning, it's sort of, the history of an object over many years. And that's what's sort of so kind of fascinating about this type of object that's found in this way, and that automatically has this kind of history attached to it. Even if we don't know what the history of that object was before it was found, we can sort of gather clues together. And
also found as part of a hobby as well. These people are doing this because this is how they enjoy spending their time. It's part of their personal histories. Yeah. Which is so, and that brings me to my last question. Thank you so much. This is a really tough one, possibly tougher than what's your favourite piece in the museum. My last question is, why does history matter?
Wow, that is such a big philosophical question.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
But I love asking people, because the answers, I think, are so vital. And with all the current climates going on, it's it's so personal, and there is no right answer, obviously.
Yeah.
But I wonder, as somebody who works in a museum, who does what you do, why do
Yeah.
you think history matters?
Well, for me, history is about connecting people. So it's about human connection, about empathy, and it's a way of connecting people that seem so distant from you. So these are people who lived hundreds or thousands of years ago, but by studying history, by looking at the material culture they left behind, or what they wrote, or what they said, we can get closer to them and find that sort of common humanity, find what's different and what's the same. And that, for me, that's so important. It's such an important part of life, because it's the same as sort of connecting with people from another part of the world or another part of society, a stranger you've never met before. History allows you to do that. And I think, if we study history and get to sort of learn and understand about people from the past, it really helps us to understand other people in the world. So yeah, it's as well as kind of learning those lessons from history, it's just a kind of there's that emotional lesson, that kind of lesson of empathy as well.
Yes. I think there's a reason why we group it under the humanities, because that's kind of what it teaches.
It's about our humanity, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you ever so much for giving up your time.
Thank
you. Cheers. Welcome to Reading the Past. Thank you so much for standing with me in front of part of this amazing exhibition. Could you please tell everybody who you are, what you do here at the museum, and what you had to do with this exhibition, please?
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Kate Sumnall. I am the Curator of Archaeology for London Museum, and I'm the lead curator for this exhibition, Secrets of the Thames.
Fabulous. And in putting this exhibition together, and I think in the finds that come in general, what are you learning about the history of the Thames, the city, the world? What have you been taught by these things?
I have been taught so much. I've been working with the Mudlarks for the last 20 years, and every day is a learning curve of every day. With each tide, there are new finds that are being discovered that the Mudlarks are bringing into the museum, and I just never know what's going to come across my desk, and I love doing the deep dive into each object. Often these are everyday things from the sorts of peoples whose names are not recorded in history, and so just having these little bits and pieces of their daily lives just gives us insights to tiny London moments that are not the big kings and queens and political happenings. It's, to me, more interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to put a photograph on screen, because there's a photo of that I've taken of some pins and a pinner's bone. And I think a lot of people might go, well, why is that interesting? Because I look at that item, the pins and the pinner's bone, and I see potentially the small child and their mother making it in a cottage industry, possibly straining their eyes in winter, because I like to fantasize in my head. But I also see that being sold to hold a bodice in place and lost, probably by somebody carousing in a boat on the Thames. And those tiny fragments of people whose names, we've lost their names, but my goodness, they're important, because it was the day-to-day life, and pins are as quintessential to life as, our smartphones are for people today. Talking of objects in this is a tough one. What's your favourite piece or pieces in this exhibition?
Now that is a really tough question. Okay, so I think for today, my favourite object is one of the objects that's behind me in this case, and it is a pomander. And it's made from knitted wire. So the skill and the hours that went into making that. It dates to the 1600s, and it would have been worn at the waist to hang down. And it's like a series of small little cages that interlocked, and each one of those little cages would have held a different scent. And at the end would have been a pomander, as we think of them, as being those spherical things with a bit of some highly perfumed material like ambergris held within it, and it was there to make you sweetly scented, to help scent your clothes, possibly also maybe to disguise if your clothes are not the freshest or you're not the freshest. But also it was very much believed that perfume had health-giving benefits of helping to fight off all the diseases that were going around at the time and just keep you healthy. It was originally found by a mudlark in the 1980s, the early 1980s, and it was brought into the collection. And at first it was interpreted as being part of a headdress that would be worn here. And as we were going through the drawers of material to look for what to include in the exhibition, I came across this really intriguing object, and I looked at it and read the description and thought, this really doesn't look like a headdress to me. I talked to Lucy, our brilliant curator of dress and textiles and fashion, and she agreed. And so we went a bit deep dive, we spoke to experts, and that's how we came across our current interpretation, which I hope is right, of it being a pomander. We've got portraits which show these sorts of things being worn, so we're hopeful.
Yes, I mean, I will be showing, I've taken a photograph of it, which I'll show on screen, but I will also try and find some portraits of Tudor queens in girdles with what looks like heavy beads. Some of them are clearly rosaries or saints, but obviously also they may have had a scent factor. And that's really interesting. Finding this stuff and interpreting it in this way, we start to figure out that it's not just a vibrant colour, that it's also an olfactory assault that I think is really, really interesting.
It's all the senses, isn't it? That's what we lose with the past, of when we read about it. You know, it gets really shrunk down, and like you, I've got a really powerful imagination. So we've got all these finds that the Mudlarks have found, and I love just imagining what it would have been like to wear, to hold, to own, of what people would have felt and how they lived.
And how gutted you'd be for that to potentially slip off your waist. Maybe you're wandering across London Bridge and it slips off and it falls in the river. You would be beside yourself, because the herbs are expensive, the items expensive, your outfit's now ruined, you haven't got the health-giving properties. What a nightmare.
Totally. But they're super fragile. It's made from such fine wire, and it would be so easy for it to be crushed. It's survived for 400-500 years in the Thames mud until the Mudlark carefully revealed it and brought it in. It's remarkable.
Incredible. My last question is designed to put you on the spot, so I apologise for that, but I also don't, because I'm going to ask it anyway. And that question is, why does history matter?
Now, what a great question. Well, I'm an archaeologist and I work in a museum. I'm passionate about that question. History matters so much. It's a trite phrase, but how on earth can we know where we're going if we don't know where we've come from? Most things that we come across in our life have happened before. In a way, there are patterns. And I think we can learn a great deal from looking back and seeing how people have responded. And God, in an ideal world, we would totally take the best bits, take the learnings, and just improve. But sadly, I think it's a flaw of humans that we are destined to repeat many of the mistakes.
Yes, we're like venture scouts, orienteering, and the compass is pointing us in a direction, but sometimes we think we know better, and we are not listening to the directions that we have been very clearly given.
You're so right.
Thank you so much for talking to me, and thank you as well for curating this fabulous exhibition. It's opening this Friday. We're filming this on Wednesday, Friday the 4th, and I hope this video is going to go out on Friday if my small baby allows me to edit it in time. It's incredible. How long is it running till?
It's running until the 1st of March, so it's on for 11 months.
Brilliant. So until next year, 2026, if you are in London, if you're coming over here, make sure you take a trip. Get on the DLR as well, which I am of the opinion is the finest of the transport lines, and I will not have a debate about it. I think it's the best line in London.
You have to sit at the front and pretend that you are driving.
Thank you very much. And I think that the Transport Museum is missing a trick, because they need a T-shirt that says, I drive the DLR. So you can have that for free. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to both Tom and Kate for agreeing to stand with me and film for my video. It was so lovely to meet both of them. Indeed, it was lovely to meet and talk to everybody I did that's been involved with making this exhibition possible. The entire team is just so lovely to speak to. It's such a friendly environment. I'm sure this must be a really brilliant place to work. And on top of that, the exhibition is fabulous. So it feels only fair and right that I get to share with you a few of my real standout pieces, and I'm absolutely sure that if I went again, these would all change, because there's so many things to catch the eye. But first off, let's start out with this cabinet. Labelled as the Shadwell Shams. These are quite unusual within this exhibition because we know who made them. A duo, Billy Smith and Charlie Eaton, referred to as, quote, enterprising and skillful mudlarks. They recognise the interest in antiquities, and so they thought what better than to start making their own. And so, according to the description, they, quote, carved moulds and cast lead objects to resemble pilgrim souvenirs that were being found. They used acid and Thames mud to age and tarnish them, and said they were found at Shadwell. It's thought that they made around 12,000 fakes, which were of course then sold for a profit. Suspicions about the true provenance of these objects did begin to be raised for a few reasons, but I think perhaps principal among them was the fact that Billie and Charlie were unable to read and write, and so when making the inscription around the medallion, the wording didn't make any sense. Here, though, we see some surviving examples of their labours. You will notice that duplicity is the name of the game with my next interesting find from the exhibition. These are weighted dice. You can see in that little black square, that's an X-ray of those tiny little die that we see just scattered at the base of that case. Where you can see the higher luminescence, that is where those die have been weighted. I'm struck by the fact that so many of them are weighted dice, but also by their tiny size. These are medieval dice, but they reminded me of the dice we see in the Rake's Progress series, about which I have made a video that I will be leaving linked. And what about this collection of type? This is known as Dove's type. The Dove's Press was founded by a pair of gentlemen, the dapper lads we see in this photograph, Thomas James Cobden Sanderson and Emery Walker. Despite collaborating on producing this type, ultimately there would be a fairly massive falling out that would have a rather spectacular conclusion. On the 31st of August 1916, Cobden Sanderson went down to Hammersmith Bridge and threw the type into the Thames. The entire set of type weighed more than a ton, 1,000 kilograms. Apparently, it took him 170 trips to put the entire set of type into the water. I wonder how he would feel that it is now on display here, and indeed that the Dove's type is in use. Indeed, I was informed that Dove's type is what was chosen to be used for the signage for the entranceway of this very exhibition. I really enjoyed the curator's decision to bring forward a sense of the Thames foreshore in this room by bringing objects, stones, rocks, sands, finds from the foreshore and laying them out in this way. Visitors get a chance to see if they can pick out their own finds visually from the foreshore itself. I also got a chance to speak to the artist behind this piece. Called Ancient Ruins, it is by Amy Lee Bird, and she is a mudlark who uses her mudlarking finds to create art pieces like this. It is made from animal bones, waste from London's butcheries, slaughterhouses, tanneries and homes. I think there's something wonderful about taking these waste objects from across the centuries and transforming them into this beautiful object. Another absolutely remarkable survival is this piece that you can see labelled number 4. This scrap of leather is a beautifully decorated book cover. Indeed, you can see how the decorations might have looked on the panel in black and white at the back. That panel, that illustration at the back, I am informed, is produced by somebody else who is also a mudlark. Their name is Charlie Dixon. It is amazing that an organic substance, leather, dated to the 1500s, has survived for all these years, particularly in the mud of the Thames. They believe that it's decorated with an image of St. George and another man with a dog. There are also floral motifs. The flowers do seem to represent and relate to the nations of Great Britain and Ireland. I can see what looks to be a thistle. There's certainly a rose, and in particular we can see the Tudor rose repeats. There is something that may approximate a shamrock, and perhaps a budding daffodil. Despite its beauty to us, it may not have been a particularly or especially high status object. Rather, this may well have belonged to somebody of the middling sort, covering a small book, perhaps a fairly thin paper. They cannot be sure exactly what book was contained within this binding, but it is suggested that it may have been a prayer book. The last item I'm going to draw your attention to, and I am aware I have picked far more than I allowed my guest to pick, but hey, it's my channel and I feel the need to be greedy. I want to point you in the direction of this incredible rapier. What I think is all the more amazing about it is, as Kate informed me, this piece, dating to 1594, came out of the Thames in one piece. Isn't it fabulous? Welcome to the last room of this exhibition and the last stop for our video. As you can see, we are sharing this space with the moon. A reminder that the Thames is a tidal river. Those tides are what make the foreshores what they are. They are what makes mudlarking possible. And so I will leave you, as I always do, with some questions. What do you think of this exhibition? Do you have plans to come and visit it? If you are coming, indeed when you do come to visit, please do let me know what you think. I had such a brilliant time. Please also let me know if you enjoyed this kind of video, if you would like me to make more like it. If you have any ideas of where you'd like me to visit, please also let me know about that. Just as a reminder, it opens on Friday, the 4th of April 2025, and it runs until the 1st of March 2026 at the London Museum, Docklands. As always, I'm looking forward to reading your conversations in the comments section underneath this video. But I'd also love it if you could pop an emoji in the comments too, to boost the engagement, get the video shared out more, and thus help us to grow our community. I'm thinking we do something rivery, maybe? That seems like a good choice for this one. You can also find me elsewhere on social media. I will leave links to all the places you can find me on the internet in my description box. Please do follow me over on some or all of those so we can continue this conversation and start some others. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, please share it with your friends. If you like my channel, let some pals know about it. You can tell me you like this video in particular by hitting the thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the channel, and if you think you are subscribed, now is the time to check to make sure you've not been mysteriously unsubscribed against your will. And while you are there, checking, subscribing, maybe resubscribing, please do hit the bell icon that sits beside the subscribe button and then select all in the drop down that will appear, and that way YouTube claim they will tell you when I've next uploaded and also when I'm next going live, which I do once a month to discuss the history news items that I have been sent by my lovely readers. It's a good time. You are not going to want to miss that. We have, of course, got our failsafe. If you head over to my website, it is www.katrinamarchant.com. It's linked in the description. Head to the contact page. There you will find this box. Please put your email address in that box, and that way, when you hit sign up, you'll be added to my list. And that will let me send you out an email once a week to tell you what I've been up to, but also to send you useful links for all my content for the coming days. I hope you're going to have a great day, whatever you're doing. And I hope that you will find the time to come and check out this fantastic exhibition. I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.